Morning!
Morning, Jim.
Big meeting today, huh?
Yeah, it's been a long road. I'll be glad when it's done.
Oh, did you drop this?
No, what is it?
A USB stick. Huh. It has budget written on the side. Maybe it's Sam's?
Give it to me. I'll bring it to him.
Maybe it's his stash of porn. I'll check first, just to be safe.
Need any help?
Let's just stop by my office first. I'll pop it in and check.
Maybe it actually is just the budget.
Boring.
Only one way to find out, I guess.
Here, let me get the door for you.
Don't do it! Just don't. A USB stick you find on the ground, especially outside your place of work, could be a firecracker waiting to go off. The USB stick might have malware on it, and if you bring it inside the office and plug it into your computer, you could take the whole system down. This USB stick in the parking lot trick is a classic of hackers, and also red teamers. So what is a red teamer, you may well ask? That's what we're going to explore in this episode of How Hacks Happen. Red teamers have one of the best jobs in cybersecurity, in my humble opinion. What they do is try to break a company's security and test it within an inch of its life. The whole idea is to help the company identify areas where their security is weak, so they can fix the holes and keep hackers out. And by breaking into the system, I mean anything from getting remote access to a company's servers to physically getting into parts of the building where they shouldn't be, all while staying undetected. Companies pay thousands of dollars for these tests, with the idea that it's a lot cheaper than dealing with an actual hack. I still remember the moment when I discovered that this red team stuff is an actual job, like something people get paid for. If I were ever going to switch jobs, this is what I would like to do. But why is it called red teaming? The concept of a red team comes from the military. In practice exercises, one entire group will split up into two teams, red and blue. While the blue team protects the fortress or camp or whatever, the red team attacks and tries to take over by whatever means possible. This could be direct attack with weapons or a sneaky spy move to get in secretly. If you've ever seen the movie Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn, there's a red team, blue team exercise where one of the blue teamers ties her red underwear to her arm to masquerade as a red teamer, and it works, and blue team wins. Private Benjamin came out in 1980, and that was the first time I'd ever heard about this red and blue team thing, but not the last. In the late 1990s, the use of red teams and blue teams in cybersecurity really started to take hold. At first, it was remote access kind of stuff, like looking for poorly secured customer portals online where an attacker could input a weird bogus command that would extract the entire customer database undetected, or give the attacker access to all the company's intellectual property. In these early red team exercises, the attackers never went near the building. It was all done remotely. Nowadays, red teaming has evolved to include physical entry to the building and access to the server room, that little closet where the most important computer is kept, the one that stores all the company's sensitive information like emails and financial records. Or to try to gain access to paper files with sensitive information, or employee records, or the company's high-security lab where they're developing and testing the prototype for their next product. Companies often keep their prototypes under lock and key, and wouldn't their competitors love to get their hands on one of them? Which brings us to a new term, penetration testing. Penetration testing, or pen testing, means testing for vulnerabilities where an attacker could get into a system, testing to see if the attacker could penetrate the cybersecurity defenses that a company put up. Pen testing through remote attacks is a whole field in itself, requiring a lot of imagination. You gotta get creative, like send out phishing emails to the entire company that look really convincing just to see if any of the employees fall for it. Or look for an online form that allows uploads of some kind and upload malware to it to see if the form accepts it. These tests aren't designed to do any damage, by the way. If an employee clicks on the phishing email, the team just logs it. And the malware they upload to the unsecure form might just do something like save a little text file on the server that the red team can point to later and say, "See, we got in." Now with red teams, penetration testing has evolved to include tests of physical systems like the front door of a building, the front desk, the badge system for letting you in. Does the receptionist just wave you on in if you claim you're there to fix the air conditioning? If you flash a badge that kind of looks similar to the real thing, can you get past the security guard? Or if you show up in a suit and say you're there for a job interview, do they buzz you right in? If you scatter a bunch of USB drives containing malware in the parking lot, will someone pick one up and plug it right into their computer? Red teaming is all about testing these systems, really pushing them to see if the red teamers can get in under false pretenses. Like, say you have to flash a badge at a scanner in your office building, and then you can go through this floppy door thing to get in the building. You flash the badge, there's a beep, and the flappy door is unlocked so you can push through it. But what if you flash your badge and get the beep, and someone pushes in behind you to ride in on your unlocking? Would you call them out, or would you just let it ride? This riding in on someone else's badge is called tailgating, and it's exactly the kind of thing a red teamer tries to do. They have no shame. They're testing to see if the person they're tailgating on will notice or even care, or maybe they'll be too timid or shy to call them out for it. And anytime somebody tailgates in and no one says anything, that points up a security risk. It means an intruder could do the same thing, barge in the same way, and no one would say a thing. Those beep badges use RFID technology, short for radio frequency identification. A lot of companies use these badges for building entry. The badge itself doesn't have a power source, but it does have a little programmable chip inside it. And when the badge passes close to an RFID reader, the reader is throwing out this electromagnetic field, and that powers up the chip and the badge for a second to send a little information back to the reader. If the reader recognizes the information, like says, "Hey, this is a valid employee," it unlocks the little flappy doors or the turnstile, or it beeps, or whatever it's designed to do to indicate that, yes, this is someone who's supposed to be allowed to pass through. The thing is, some types of RFID badges can be cloned. Recall that I just said the chip in the badge is programmable. If you can get yourself physically within range of one of these badges, you might be able to clone it. This is another tool in the red teamer's toolbox. A classic red team move is to do something like they follow people from a company to where they go to lunch, and they've all got their badges clipped to their hip. And so they accidentally bump into one of them just long enough for the little RFID cloner in their pocket to read the badge. Then they can make a clone of the badge and get into the building that way, or try to anyway. Sneaky, sneaky. Another classic move is dress up in coveralls with a name badge and say you're there to fix the air conditioning or do pest control. If you look official enough, they might just let you in, and then you can walk all over the building, going into back rooms and closets without question. The right thing for the front desk to do when someone shows up in coveralls is ask who hired them so they can call that person and confirm. And ideally, that person who hired them comes down and escorts the workers to the HVAC system or the roof or wherever they're supposed to be going. And someone stays with them the whole time they're working. and make absolutely sure they don't go into parts of the building that they're not supposed to be in. But sadly, a lot of companies are lax about this. Two nice, clean-cut fellas or women show up and they got good manners and clean overalls and a nice name tag and a company name holding a bag of tools, and they just let them in to wander around wherever they like. They don't look like criminals, just going to let them in. It's ridiculously easy to do in some cases. To illustrate, we take you now to DEF CON, a conference held every August in Las Vegas for hackers and cybersecurity pros. At the conference, people share information, demonstrate vulnerabilities, engage in hacking contests, and generally learn cutting-edge technologies for hacking and protecting systems. I've been to DEF CON, and it's a lot of fun, and it is everything I just said and more. It's pretty wild. At DEF CON in 2014, two red teamers held a great talk detailing the vulnerabilities of RFID badges in the wild, called All Your Badges Belong to Us. It was Eric Smith and Josh Perryman, two experienced red teamers with a lot of stories to tell. By the way, the grammar error on the title All Your Badges Belong to Us was deliberate. As cyber geeks, we like a little video game reference like this one. This title refers to a Japanese video game from 1989 called Zero Wing, which had the notoriously poorly translated line, All Your Base belong to us. And thus the title, All Your Badges belong to us. In this talk, Smith and Perryman demonstrate how to clone an RFID card in great detail, using parts you can buy off eBay or Amazon. There's even a YouTube video of their entire talk, which I've linked in the show notes. And then a few years later, I saw a presentation by two other red teamers, Brent White and Tim Roberts. These guys are very entertaining with a lot of red teamer stories. They know how to open pretty much any kind of door using a gizmo made basically out of a coat hanger or something similar to that. And they have this clipboard with an RFID cloner in it. So what they do is they put on like coveralls and they manage to get into a building by pretending to be maintenance, or they've got one of those reflective yellow jackets on. It's like, hey, I'm here with the construction crew. And they talk about hanging out with a security guard and cloning his badge, or asking another security guard about how the visitor badges work. And she was like, oh, here's a whole book of them. And they just sat there with their clipboard cloning them, one right after the other. And they also show how to avoid these problems, like even at facilities that have spent thousands, millions of dollars on security. If there's a gap in the door, that's where they can get in with their little tool. But all you have to do is put up some weather stripping or something. And they even have a tip for hotel rooms. Like, they can actually get in there with a coat hanger and open just about any hotel room door. But all you have to do is stuff a towel into the gap where the handle is. And there's a whole video about that too. I've also put a link to that in the show notes if you want to have a look at it. Now, fortunately, because red teamers are there primarily to report and not do any damage, nothing bad happens with any of this stuff. But those security guards that just handed over their badges or let them be cloned obviously didn't know what RFID cloning is. And at this point, you are more informed than they were. So what happens after a red team does their security audit? They write up a report, send it to the management of the company who hired them, and this report is not just their findings of what they're able to do to get past security, but also some recommendations of what the company could do to remedy the situation, like maybe more training for employees or something. They're very nice about it all. There's no insulting being thrown around. I mean, the whole reason they were hired was to find vulnerabilities. And that's what they've done. Now, with any red team activity, there's always the risk that you'll get called out by someone and have to explain yourself, and you even run the risk of getting arrested and thrown in jail. But red teamers have what's called a get-out-of-jail-free card. Basically, a letter from the company signed by somebody like the CEO or the Chief Information Security Officer, basically saying that you have the right to be there and do the stuff you're doing. This term, get-out-of-jail-free card, comes from Monopoly. It's a board game where you try to get rich, but you can also get sent to jail if you pick this wrong card. But if you have a get-out-of-jail-free card that you picked earlier, you just flash the card and off you go. You're out of jail. Now, for red teaming, having a get-out-of-jail-free card, this letter, it includes names and phone numbers of people that you can call to confirm that the red teamers are who they say they are. And red teamers always have this in their pocket, just in case something happens. In general, if security does stop you or the police are called, showing the letter and then confirming via phone call that yes, you've been paid to be here, contracted to be there, and stress test their security, that's enough to get you out of trouble. Everybody just confirms, and then everybody goes on with their business. It's no big deal. And in fact, red teamers consider getting stopped and questioned to be a good thing. In terms of security, it means that there's decent security at the company. It means that individuals within the company are paying attention and know enough about security to stop them and ask a few questions. And they aren't too timid or shy or embarrassed to speak up. And this is what a company needs to stay secure. But there was this one famous red team incident where the get-out-of-jail-free card didn't work, and the consequences were pretty disastrous. The story starts with a company called Coalfire. Coalfire is a security advisory firm based in Chicago, but they've got offices all over the country. And they get hired by all kinds of Fortune 500 companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, even IBM. And Coalfire offers a whole bunch of different services, like a network framework for cybersecurity. And they also offer physical penetration testing with a red team. And while Coalfire doesn't give out the exact numbers, just based on different presentations I've seen and heard about, they've done lots of these over the years. Banks, corporate offices, government buildings, just about anywhere that's trying to identify gaps in their physical security so they can fix them. This brings us to September 2019. When Coalfire got a physical penetration job from the Iowa Judicial Branch to test courthouse security in a bunch of different towns in Iowa. Coalfire did their usual thing of making up a contract and discussing extensively with the client, laying out exactly what the red teamers could and couldn't do, what they were expected to do, and what they were expected not to do. This is a standard thing with any red team contract. It's going to be pages and pages long with tons of detail. Everything from what times of day the red teamers are allowed to try to get in, whether they're allowed to use lock-picking tools or disarm the alarm systems, what they're going to do if they encounter another person, and everything from that to what the client wants in the final report that they're going to give them. And of course, red teamers are duty-bound to do no actual damage, like they don't steal or destroy anything. Now, because this contract calls for breaking into courthouses, that get-out-of-jail-free card is doubly important, since breaking into a courthouse is a felony under lots of other circumstances. Like, you don't get a slap on the wrist like you would for something like, finding an unlocked door at a courthouse and wandering around. Coalfire was hired to see if they could like break in and see how far they could get into sensitive areas before the cops showed up. This brings us to our 2 Red Team employees at Coalfire, Justin Wynn and Gary DeMercurio, who are now famous in cybersecurity circles for what happened next. Justin and Gary are seasoned Red Teamers with years of experience between them. And while every Red Team job is a little nerve-wracking, this one didn't stand out to them for being particularly tricky or difficult. One detail is that the break-ins needed to happen at night, so they wouldn't disrupt day-to-day operations like any of the hearings or trials going on. No biggie. So Justin and Gary go off to Iowa and break into a couple of the buildings on the list. In one of them, they left no trace at all, except one of their own business cards, which they placed on the keyboard of one of the people in the Iowa State Judicial Branch who hired them. This is a classic Red Teamer move, a fun but convincing way to say, hey, I got all the way into your office undetected. The guy who got the card was impressed, and he emailed them as soon as he got into his office the next day and saw the card. The next courthouse on the list was in the city of Adel. Justin and Gary used a simple tool to unlock an outer door, popping a lock without damaging anything, and once inside, they tripped an alarm. Now this was fine. It was part of the contract not to do anything special to avoid tripping an alarm, because the client wanted to test what would happen when the alarm went off. Like, would the police actually come? How long would it take for them to be called? All that kind of thing. So the police do show up, and Justin and Gary do what they're trained to do, and they've done dozens of times before. They come out and talk to the officers respectfully and show them their get-out-of-jail-free card. And the cops, they immediately relax. They can tell from their demeanor that these are not criminals. They're not trying to run away. They're hanging around talking about what they do. And they all just start chatting with each other, even joking around. The police officers ask Justin and Gary how they got in, and Gary shows him this little handmade tool he made from a household item he bought off Amazon for a couple of bucks. And another one asks how they can get a job as a Red Teamer. Just business as usual. This is what Justin and Gary have been through so many times. They figure they'll be back in their hotel room within a few hours, and they got lots of stuff to write in their report for Coalfire. And then, a few minutes later, Dallas County Sheriff Chad Leonard shows up. And it's at that point that everything goes really sideways. Sheriff Leonard is not nearly as impressed with Justin and Gary. They present their get-out-of-jail-free card, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning at this point, so it would be very hard to call one of these people and get them on the phone. Sheriff Leonard informs Justin and Gary that the courthouse is property of the county, not the state. And it's the state that hired Coalfire. So to his mind, Justin and Gary are trespassing. And he has the officers arrest them and haul them off to jail. Justin and Gary are concerned at this point, but not really panicked. They figure in the morning, someone from the state's gonna come to their arraignment and they're gonna straighten things out. So the next morning, Justin and Gary have to go before a judge for their arraignment, and the charges now are not just trespass, but felony burglary. And no one from the state came to explain things, and there just wasn't enough time for someone from Coalfire to get to the arraignment before it started. In a weird twist, their arraignment was in the same courthouse they had just broken into the night before. When they went before the judge, and they calmly explained that this was a misunderstanding, and they showed their get-out-of-jail-free card, She did not believe them. In an interview with the Darknet Diaries podcast, Justin and Gary recalled how the judge angrily told them it was her courthouse, and if they'd been hired to break in, she certainly would have heard about it. Justin and Gary were dumbfounded. This was turning into this unreal situation. But later that day, Coalfire came and put up their bail, and Justin and Gary got to go home. I remember when this happened back in 2019 because the entire cybersecurity world was talking about it like, how could a judge not know what penetration testing is? But I guess it's still not a household word. Maybe after today it will be. Tell your friends, okay? Eventually, all the charges were dropped, but only after months of back and forth with the state of Iowa and the county prosecutor. For example, the state tried to backpedal and say they didn't authorize a late-night break-in, and Coalfire had to point to the contract and say, look at this clause right here. The prosecutor finally says, okay, we'll bump the charges down from felony burglary to misdemeanor trespass. And Justin and Gary are like, no, we're not going to admit to a crime that we didn't commit. And just before their trial is about to start in February of 2020, 6 months after their arrest, the prosecutor drops the charges altogether. But the damage is done. It will permanently be on the record that Justin and Gary were arrested for a felony. And this is something that will show up anytime a client does a background check on them or they try to get some kind of security clearance. After revisiting that story, maybe I don't want to be a red teamer after all. One upside of the Coalfire case is that it did call attention to the fact that penetration testing exists. Companies do it, and it's important. And people shouldn't get arrested for it, or then no one's going to do it. And maybe hearing about this will help you be more aware when you're at your job or your bank or even a courthouse. Like, don't let people tailgate you. If you see somebody aggressively trying to do it, say something. You don't even have to confront the person. Just tell the front desk or a security guard. And if you find a USB drive in a parking lot or on the floor, or even out walking around in life, for the love of all that is cyber secure, do not pop it into your computer to see what's on it. This is Michelle Bousquet from How Hacks Happen, wishing upon you that you are never arrested for felony burglary just from doing your job. Stay safe out there.